A farmer lets a homeless man into her farm. This is what he did in the middle of the night. I've got 5 minutes to stop and ask this man what his story is and why he's there. When a woman struck up a conversation with an Ontario homeless man, she didn't imagine it would change his life forever. After it became clear that Brian Bannister was a kind soul who had simply fallen on hard times, Danielle McDuff offered him a job on her farm. Bannister was living in a shed after a terribly challenging life that involved childhood trauma, overcoming addiction, and the death of his first wife, followed by the death of his second. Little Stanley and little Baby are a couple of noisy kids bleating for their bottles of milk. These baby goats are two good reasons for Brian Bannister to get out of bed each day. Just a few months ago, he didn't have a bed to get out of. Brian was unhoused, sleeping in either a snowbank or a shed. The goats are at Daniel McDuff's family farm, where Brian has been working for several weeks. It all started after Danielle paused on her way into her local coffee shop to grab drinks for her staff. She passed him countless times, sitting stooped on a pail reading a book, but she had never engaged. The day I did stop, I was heading out to get coffee for the other staff, and I just said to myself, I have 5 minutes, I've got to make 5 minutes to stop and ask this man what his story is and why he's there. That moment changed the trajectory of Brian's life. At the start of this year, the 60-year-old was unhoused and close to giving up. I didn't care about my life. I let things go too far, and then, when you let it go too far, there was no turning back. Danielle and Brian's first conversation was less than 30 minutes. But by the time she said goodbye, she'd already asked if he'd be interested in coming to work on the family farm. He agreed, and when she said she'd be by to pick him up at 8 the next morning, Brian was in disbelief. You jumped right off your pail. You were so excited, she says, as they laughed together. As they drove into the farmyard and Brian saw the animals, his happy memories of working on various farms more than 20 years ago came flooding back. Brian, the McDuffs, and all the animals instantly connected. The impact of Danielle's decision to stop and invite Brian to work at her farm has had a profound impact on not only the two of them, but the entire Newcastle, Ontario community. Late last month, a massive snowstorm was forecast. Danielle was worried about Brian sleeping in the cold, so she went online to family and friends to ask for some money to put him in a hotel room for the night. The donations poured in. There was quickly enough money to move on from a hotel to renting a proper room indefinitely. I didn't think anybody cared about me anymore until Danielle came to stop and talk to me one day, Brian's voice cracks, and she came back the next day and offered me a job at the farm, and it's changed my life immensely. Danielle and Brian have become close, and she's helped with everything from booking his first haircut in 2 years to connecting him with his first cell phone. I couldn't figure this thing out. I had to wait till the ringing stopped and then go through about 50 times just so I could maybe hit the right buttons, he says. Danielle smiles. You still kind of struggle with that, but we're getting there. The chance that changed my life. As you go through life, you never really know when a simple act of kindness might touch someone in a way that's completely life-changing. No matter how much we may want it to, life doesn't always go our way, and no one knows this better than 69-year-old Coy Featherston. When Coy was in high school, he never could have imagined where he'd eventually end up. Starting running back on the football team, voted best all-around boy, and one of the most popular kids in school, he was living his best life. However, as the years passed, life took its toll. After struggling to find work, Coy found himself living on the streets for more than 2 decades, until a long-lost childhood friend stopped in and helped him back on his feet, proving that true friendship really does last a lifetime. What happened to Coy Featherston? After high school, Coy attended the University of Texas on a football scholarship, but left within a year. He started touring with music legend Frank Zappa and worked as a concert lighting director for 15 years. But after losing his job in 1989, his life spiraled into darkness. He tried to start over in Atlanta, Georgia, working various jobs, but nothing stuck. In an interview with the Washington Post, Coy shared that he suffered a number of devastating setbacks, including the loss of both his brother and his apartment. At the same time, he also faced a few misdemeanor charges when he fought to save his property from theft. He returned to Austin, Texas, broken and defeated, struggling with mental health issues and living on the streets. Fast forward to 2019. A local newspaper, the Austin American-Statesman, ran a story about homelessness, and a photo of Coy graced the front cover. The article, about a battle brewing over dueling laws around a homeless camping ban in certain areas of the city, featured a picture of a disheveled Featherston pushing a shopping cart filled with his belongings in the rain. When the article was published, Leah Meschling, who knew Coy in middle school, received an email from a friend asking, "Was the Coy Featherston in that photo the same one she grew up with in Corpus Christi?"